Hello, everyone. This is David Vitti. I am going over the Congressional Report, Legislative Proceedings from the Digest, the official record of the House, and the official record of the Senate. This is an overview. It does go into a little detail, but not a lot, so that you get an understanding of what's going on. And I encourage you to do further research and find out what the deep in-depth thing is. This is just an overview so you know what's happening in Congress, in the House and Senate. Uh, on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, the 119th Congress engaged in a high-stakes debate over federal funding, judicial nominations, and tax policies. The day was marked by the House's progress towards finalizing a massive consolidation appropriations package and the Senate advancement of the judicial picks amidst sharp partisan rhetoric on immigration and civil liberties. Senate actions, nominations, and tax relief. The Senate met at 10 a.m. with President Pro Tem Chuck Grassley presiding. The primary focus was the consideration of judicial nominations and the speeches regarding the economic impact administration tax policy. Judicial nominations. The Senate advanced the nomination of Aaron Christian Peterson on October 23rd, 2025. Donald J. Trump nominated Aaron Christian Peterson to the United States District Court of District of Alaska. The bibliography of him is born in Anchorage, Alaska, 1981. Peterson earned his BBA in finance from the University of Alaska in 2007, and his JD from Juris Doctorate from the Gonzaga University School of Law in 2010. Legal experience. Peterson began his legal career, as a clerk for Judge Michael R. Fan with the Alaska Superior Court, 2010 to 2011. He then worked as an assistant municipal prosecutor with the Anchorage Municipal Prosecutor's Office, 2011 to 2012, and an assistant district attorney with the Anchorage District Attorney's Office from 2012 to 2015, and as an assistant attorney general with the Office of Special Prosecution, Alaska Department of Law, Criminal Division, 2015 to 2019. Since 2019, Peterson has worked as a senior assistant attorney general with the Alaska Department of Law Civil Division. Natural Resources section to be a U.S. District Judge for Western District of Missouri with a cloture vote of 55 to 39. The nomination of David Clay Folks for the Western District of Arkansas, this is the new one, this is the second one, was also reported on October 23rd, 2025. Donald Trump nominated David Clay to the United States District Court for the Western District of Arkansas. Born in Harris, Arkansas, Folks earned a BA from Arkansas State University in 2000, and his jurisprudence degree from University of Arkansas in 2003. Legal experience. Folks began his career working as a summer law clerk at the Womack, Landis, Phelps, McNeil, and McDaniel law firm summer of 2001, and Davis, Wright, Clark, Butt, and Carithers law firm summer of 2002. Following law school, he worked with Benton County Prosecuting Attorney Office first as a deputy prosecutor in 2003 to 2005, then as a deputy chief or division chief 2005 to 2007. From there, he worked as a assistant United States State Attorney 2007 to 2014, Deputy Criminal Chief 2014 to 2015, Criminal Chief 2015 to 2016, First Assistant United States Attorney 2016 to 2020, and became United States Attorney for the Western District of Arkansas 2020 to 2025. Okay, that's over. That's the nominees. Now we're going into the working families tax cuts. A majority of leaders, John Thune, highlighted the working families tax cuts, starting with 6 million Americans are now able to deduct tips and overtime pay from their taxes. He argued this saves hardworking Americans hundreds of dollars and provides a district boost. Provides a district boost to the current tax filing system. The working family tax cuts, officially is part of the Big Beautiful Bill, or OBBBA, signed into law July 4th, 2025, represented a significant overhaul of the U.S. tax code, while the legislation made it the 2017 tax brackets permanent also introduce several novel carve-outs specifically designated to increase take-home pay for hourly service sector workers. The most notable provision is no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, which became retroactive January 1st, 2025, and are being claimed for the first time during the current 2026 tax filing season. There's the catch, people. You don't get no tax on tips and no tax on overtime while it's happening. They are still held out. You get to deduct them at the end, and then later on I'll go over what the deductions are. No tax on tips and overtime. The provision, this is a coverage of it. The two provisions are centerpiece of the relief package aimed at rewarding high efforts work in the service and industry sectors. Feature no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, max deduction $25,000 per year, $12,500. It's maximum deduction $25,000 per year for joint filers, $12,500 for individual. The total qualifying tips deducts the 0.5 times premium only. Income limit phases out starting at 150K single, 300K joint. Same phase out thresholds for who qualify for occupations that regularly receive tips prior to 2025, hour and non-exempt salary employees. Deducts the 0.5. Yeah, this pro tip on overtime. The deduction only applies to the extra half of time and a half. For example, if you earn $20 regular and get $30 of overtime, you can only deduct $10 premium, not the full $30. Okay, people. So you're going to get paid $30. And what they're going to do is they're going to tax you on $20, the first $20, which is your hourly income, if that's what you make. The $10 is what's going to be tax-free. So, in other words, they're only going to cut out basically 1/3 of the taxes on overtime. That's all they're deducting. You still have to pay 2/3, which is your regular pay. Uh, Enhanced relief for families and seniors. Beyond service sectors carve-outs, the law expanded existing benefits to combat the affordable crisis debate in Congress. Child tax credit increases to $2,200 per child from $2,200 increase. Starting 2026, this amount indexed to inflation to prevent bracket creep. Senior deduction. Individuals of age 65 plus can claim $6,000, an additional $6,000 deduction, $12,000 for couples, effectively making 88% of the senior exempt from paying any income tax on their Social Security benefits. There's still 12%, but there's that. I have to look into that further. If anybody does, they can put it in the comments. The bigger standard deduction. The standard deduction was boosted to a $15,750 for an individual, $31,500 for joint filers, meaning most families don't pay a cent on their first 31.5K of income. Car loan interest. Taxpayers can now deduct up to $10,000 in interest paid on loans for made in America vehicles. I'm not sure about that because I know you can write off your taxes on the vehicle, but if you don't pay in, you don't get to write them off. But yeah, that kind of sounds good. We'll see. Legislative status, the big ugly package. As discussed on February 3rd, House session, Congress is currently working through H.R. 7148, the Consolidation Appropriations Act. This bill is critical because it provides the funding for the IRS and other agencies to actually process the new deductions. Without the passage of the funding, the IRS has warned of delays in issuing the supersized refund, estimated to be $1,000 higher on average that the working families tax cuts promised. I don't think it's going to be that high, but we'll see when people get to taxes. Impact of normal citizens, gig workers, and servers. A waiter making $50,000 with a $10,000 tip in tips would see an additional $2,200 in tax savings this year compared to last. Okay. Industry workers. An assembly line worker working 10 hours of overtime per week could see that their take-home pay increased by roughly $1,400 annually. Homeowners. The cap on state and local taxes, SALT deduction was increased from $40,000 to $10,000, up from $10,000, provided massive relief for middle-class income families in high tax states like New York, California, Illinois. And that is a falsehood because it does not say Texas, and Texas has higher taxes on housing than California. We would don't need to calculate that. Foreign policy and hostages. Senator Grassley commended President Donald Trump for securing a ceasefire deal that led to return of Israel hostages, though he noted that the bodies of fallen hostages remain in Gaza. We will see
The last two attempts have failed. They're still reporting that both sides are violent. There's still violence from both sides, which means the ceasefire is not happening. I do not condone either side's fighting each other. I understand that Israel got attacked at first on October 7th, but Israel is also performing a genocide and trying to remove all the Palestinians. But also, if you look, they're trying to remove some of the other Muslim people. That being said, there are terrorists in the group, but the terrorists have been put in place by basically our actions have caused it. We are the ones that went and removed the Shah of Iran, creating the gap in their leadership, which allowed for people to take over. And being as the terrorists were more powerful, they took over. The people in Gaza were taken over by Hamas because of the gap filled or left by the way they were treated. The Iraq, we are the ones that removed the leadership and watched this leadership go in place. That's what we keep doing. We keep going over there, removing leaderships and allowing the new leadership to take over without any supervision. And Afghanistan, we got to a point that was basically a no-win scenario for anybody. And rather than work with Afghanistan leaders, the terrorists, Taliban terrorists, and Americans, and work out a escape plan with actions if they violated the terms of the treaty, was not done. Trump worked out a deal with Taliban and demanded they release 5,000 Taliban that were arrested in jail in Afghanistan. At the same time that he said he got these people released, he decided to take the American service members down to 2,500. I think it was 2,500 when Biden took over. Biden did the best he could with what he had available and used the exit plan that was designed by Trump without any precautions for if it was violated or not. They also did not allow for people to be there and help the leaders of Afghanistan continue into power. Thus, when they released the 5,000 Taliban, they ran the leadership of Afghanistan out. In other words, the Taliban took over leadership of Afghanistan. That's what happens. We take out the leaders, and usually terrorists come in and take over. We don't stay and help. Once we remove them, we don't stay and help them get a new leadership. Oh, that's y'all's job. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. We have screwed it up almost every time. Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Somalia, Kosovo, Venezuela, Brazil, Cuba, we've tried it, and these have all happened like that. Now, that being said, let's continue with the House actions. These are the House, this is the House official record. The House focuses on House Resolution 1032, a rule providing for the consideration of several major bills. HR 7148, Consolidation Appropriations Act 2026. This is a bill, is a big ugly spending package aimed at funding the Departments of Defense, Labor, Health and Human Services, Education. Proponents argue it is essentially for paying soldiers $44.45 billion for the Army and sustaining military rating. Okay. HR 4090, the Critical Mineral Dominance Act. This legislation aims to reduce U.S. dependence on foreign materials, particularly from China, by streamlining domestic mining process. Potential benefits, job creation. Proponents say it will create thousands of high-paying jobs, blue-collar mining, refining jobs in states like Nevada, Arizona, and Minnesota. Low costs by stabilizing the supply chain. It could eventually lead to lower prices for electronics and vehicles that rely on these minerals. National security. It reduces the likelihood a mineral embargo that could cripple the U.S. economy or military during conflict. Those are the potential benefits. Potential concerns. Environmental impact. Critics warn that the fast track mining could lead to long-term soil and water contaminants in rural communities. It could poison the rural soil and water table for the rural areas, which is going to hurt our farming and our lead land U.S. conflict. The act that may lead to increasing for federal seizure of land or the overriding of local zoning laws to facilitate mining. In other words, they're going to demand eminent domain and take over lands and throw off the zoning in some areas because they're just going to override it. Cost to taxpayers, the multi-billion dollars grant program for the processing plant adds to the federal deficit unless offset by other cuts. So basically, they're putting this big grant out there and they haven't got a way to pay it. If they could tax more or do something to add more money, and that's what's going to happen. HR 142 doesn't have a lot on it. It doesn't have a summary yet as of the time I wrote this thing up. A joint resolution to disapprove the District of Columbia income and franchise tax conformity and revision temporary amendment act of 2025, asserting federal oversight over DC local tax laws. Basically, they're going to keep controlling DC's tax laws and not allowing the DC to do their own. But again, DC is a federal territory and not a state or a city. Here's the 1 minute speeches and what it has to do with citizens. The floor speeches highlight how legislative decisions affect everyday Americans, with heavy emphasis on public safety and affordability. Public safety and civil rights Representative Dunham and others members voiced alarm over the killing of Alexander Freddie and Renee Good by federal agents. They argued that the citizens exercise the First and Second Amendment rights and our rights are being met with state-sponsored terror and Homeland Security agents demanding accountability for these deaths. I want to be crystal clear about this is actually the speech on the floor. I want to be part of it anyway. I want to be crystal clear. I am voting no. I will not stand by and give any more money, Stephen Miller and Christine Nome, to bankroll an out of control operation that is terrorizing communities and shredding the Constitution. We are watching masked armed agents force their way into homes without judicial warrants. We are seeing blatant violations of the Fourth Amendment. We are witnessing agencies act with impunity. We are hearing about kids getting kidnapped on their way to school, grandparents dragged from their homes. We are listening as government officials smear dead Americans as domestic terrorists instead of answering basic questions about what happened. That is pretty important. We need to keep drawing attention to that. Not only the kidnapping kids going to and from school, they're kidnapping people, they're yanking them out of cars, they're leaving the cars behind, even if they're in the middle of roads. They are also arresting these people, not getting any contact to people in the area. So animals are being left home. Kids are being left behind because their parents are arrested and they get home to nothing. So that's why we need to draw attention to this. It's happening nationwide and it's happening in some places in secret that people don't realize it. Texas is one that's been so used to it happening. They're not calling it out, which they should be. But also people in Texas turn out to vote, and we need to remove some of this leadership that is not for our people. Mainly the ones that just do what the president asked without any question. And I've written a couple of my representatives, you may have written your own, that have said, we can't do anything. But when you look at the Constitution, there is something they can do. They can get together with other states and come to an agreement and override and make amendments to the Constitution. It takes 2/3 to create a Continental Congress and then 3/4 of the states to ratify it. And that will make a new amendment. Granted, it will create problems, but that's what our system is for. If we have tyranny and we have dissension among our administration, our executive and There is no accountability. We can, as people, as we have the right to step up and demand action from our states to hold them accountable. We also have the vote in the midterms. And I will tell you now, be prepared because they will do things to make us not come out for midterms. They will surround the facilities by ICE agents. They will have National Guards on site, provoke fear in you. Don't let it happen. If you see a surrounded polling site, contact the agencies in charge of that, which are supposed to be nonpartisan, but I don't make any guarantees. Also, check your voter registration and be sure you're registered and you have a real ID and know the state laws for voting and what IDs you need and how long you have to register. Some states have same-day registration. Check those out. Some only do same-day registration for early voting. Make sure you know the rules. Texas, I think, is 30 days. And what I would recommend on that, hold on. Texas is 30 days. I forget what, you can look up your state and see what it is, but I register every year, make sure I am registered. I also check it regularly, my registration. And on the 30 days from the election, the primary or the final election, the midterms and that, I will pull up my registration and print it, print screen showing if I am registered or not. And if you go down, you print it up that day and you are not, and you show up to vote and are not registered to vote by them, ask to have a provisional special ballot. And then you will do that, show them your proof that you were registered 30 days prior, if they and show them all your documents that you need. Then you will file a complaint with the election board of your state and inform them what happened. Include a copy of the 30-day prior that you, or whatever, whenever that time was that you were registered, and you registered between there and then, did not have, it was no change. What happened in Texas in that $2.5 million purge, or 2.5 million people purged, registered voters were purged. And that could cost us, but what needs to happen is you need to ensure that you have voted, at least in the presidential elections, to stay on the rolls. If you miss 2 presidential elections, you can be purged off the records. If they find your name on the death rolls as unalive, dying, and your registered as a death certificate, they find that, they will remove you off the rolls. That being said, verify everything and ensure you have the information, and be sure that you don't get labeled dead, because if you're labeled as deceased, it's hard to correct it. And what can happen, and what I'm seeing is what they're going to start doing is, like, if they come across, let's say, Jose or Jesus Gonzalez, they're going to go, okay, we have deported a Jose Gonzalez, a Jesus Gonzalez, and they're going to remove all the people from the voter registration with those names. That's why you have to stay on top of it. Make sure you have proper paperwork. I understand that the passport is expensive, and that's the only document that guarantees you are an American citizen. You can get a passport ID. I think it's $30. It's cheaper that you can get a basic ID like the real ID. And this passport ID, but you cannot use it to travel. You have to have a real passport to travel. That also, the part that is irritating is the real ID. If it's stamped with a real ID, they verify that you are authorized to live in the United States. If they have a basic driver's license, that does not guarantee you have the right to live in the United States. Once you put the real ID on there, they prove that you have the right to live in the United States. That's the way it's supposed to be, which means it should be an acceptable form of identification, but that's neither here nor there. Make sure you get your passport or photo ID, the ID passport, the little picture card one, should be acceptable. There's also another way, but it's very expensive. You can get a certificate of citizenship, and that is, I think, $1,600, but that is for life. Don't have any time limit, whereas a passport is 10 years. Okay, and always carry identification on you that it would let's show that you're a U.S. citizen or you belong in the United States. Always have that on you. Green card, citizenship card, driver's license, passport, recommended. I do not suggest you carry your Social Security and your birth certificate because if somebody gets those, they can become you. You can photocopy and see if that'll work, but I don't know what the way that ICE is acting because they're not even listening when people say they're American citizens. But let's continue harping on it and get Congress to say this needs to stop and get it put in place. The other way is to ensure you turn out to vote. And if you are scared and afraid to go to the voting areas, get a friend to go with you. And people, veterans and young people need to show up and help these people get to the voting booths. Provide transportation, provide a walking partner, provide somebody to be there so they can get to the thing. Now, that being covered, that was a lot, and I hope that is enough. Furthermore, economic relief, freshman Democrats spoke the affordable crisis, advocating the protection of Medicare or Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid and SNAP benefits that they cite constituent stories, elderly couples struggling to choose between chemotherapy and rent, urging Republicans to work on a lowering living cost rather than vanity projects. Democrats are working on bills that will meaningfully help families deal with affordable crisis. There are bills that have been introduced that stop price gouging at the grocery stores, make housing more affordable, and make health care accessible for all. But the Republicans have yet to keep up on any of these proposals. We are in the midst of a affordable crisis. The Republicans are refusing to work with us to address it. We are 13 months into the first term in the Congress, and my colleagues and I have yet to see any meaningful piece of legislation from the Republicans that makes a life less expensive for our constituents. Over the past year, Republicans choose to rename the Gulf of Mexico, redefine the showerhead, redefine what a showerhead is. Oh my God, I remember that. Sorry. Rename the Kennedy Center, look into annexing Greenland. Yeah, that's not a good idea. That's attacking a sovereign nation and an ally. Regulating fridges and gas stoves, and perhaps the most egregious one is to make the largest cuts to healthcare in our country's history in order to give billionaires a tax break. The fact that Trump and his Republicans are prioritizing these bills over lowering the cost of living is insulting to our constituents. I fail to see how renaming the Gulf of Mexico, redefining the definition of showerhead, or annexing Greenland will help with the families in our districts afford groceries or pay their rent. Because Donald Trump and the Republicans' policies, families across the country paid on average over $1,600 more due in everyday expenses. And if you think about what was just said about the tax breaks, that's cutting your tax breaks out. Californians are paying over $2,300. However, do you know who is benefiting from Trump administration? The answer is billionaires. With the big ugly bill, with the big ugly Trump and Republican have implemented the largest cut in healthcare in history of our country, and worsen the affordability crisis across just to line the pockets of the billionaires donors. The big ugly bill is also the largest cut to food assistance in America history. The bill cuts SNAP benefits by 20% for all participants, are roughly 20 billion, or no, are roughly 200 billion, jeopardizing SNAP benefits for more than 40 million people, including 16 million children, 8 million seniors who rely on this for nutrition and assistance. Republicans turn their backs on making life affordable for our most vulnerable in order to help the billionaires afford another yacht. My House Democrat caucus freshman colleagues and I are focused on making life better for Americans people and driving down grocery prices, utility bills, rent and mortgage payments, and child care and elderly care costs so that the hardworking people can breathe a lot easier. To help working families, especially multi-generational households, deal with the rising cost of living, I am introducing a multi-generational family tax credit. My bill gives multi-generational families tax credit for expenses that they incur when they upgrade their houses to make more room for accessibility for their aging parents who live with them. This includes upgrades like handrails in the shower and additional bathroom or bedroom, or even assistance to go up and downstairs. Their tax credit will help multi-generational families afford to make the upgrade necessary for seniors to age gracefully in one place. Infrastructure stability. Representative McGovern warned that failing to pass the FAA Amtrak funding in the appropriations bill would wreak havoc on our airports and throw federal employees into a chaos confusion. I have a hard time finding this in their registration, but it's a one-minute speech, so you have to look, and it's kind of weeded in there. Yes and no. The Amtrak would provide transportation on the land, which is trains, airports, of course, the airport. So yes, it would save money from TSA in the airports, but you still have to make sure that they're getting on the track, Amtrak, and are safe there. So you would have to provide some kind of security there too. There's that. Now, legislative progress for introducing to law. Okay, the bill and measure, it'll be bill measure stage at where it is as of February 3rd and the next step. So HR 7148, near final, House adopted a rule concurring in the Senate amendments. Done. House vote to concur, then to the president's desk. So basically, they got to vote and send it on. HR 4090, critical minerals. Active debate, rule adopted for floor consideration, floor debate, and vote in the House. So they got to vote, they got to put it on the floor, debate it, and then vote, and then send it over to Congress, or to the Senate. Peterson nomination, advanced cloture agreed to 55 to 39. Final confirmation vote in the Senate. So they have to go to the whole Senate for a whole vote. Senate Resolution 581 agreed to in the Senate, formally adopted, does not require House or presidential section. So that's just a Senate resolution. And what was that? 581. Senate Resolution 581, a resolution honoring the life of Corporal Grade 1 Matthew T. High Snook of Delaware State Police, law officer that looks like get recognition. Yeah, that's what that is. Get the recognition. Okay. There are links to the congressional records for the House, the Senate, the Daily Digest, and video of the floor proceeding, and then one also of the Senate proceeding. The Senate is not a direct Senate. It's a C-SPAN, if I remember right. And that's that. Now, as far as digest, share the screen. The reason I pulled this up is because this has the also the committees, routine proceedings on pages S447 and to S473. That's in the congressional record, or that's in the congressional record where you can look for those pages. Measures introduced, 10 bills were introduced as follows. S3761 to 3770, page S470. That's a congressional record. Measure reported S688 to combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing at source globally and amendments. Honor passed, honoring the Corporal Ty Snook Peterson nomination agreement. Yeah, you can see all these. And here we go over here to this side. Olson nomination, cloture, the page. There's the page numbers. You can see that. Nomination confirmed for Senate confirmed the following nominations by 54 to 40 was Clay Folks of Arizona, United States, Arkansas, Western District of Arkansas, 51 to 45. Nicholas John Ganji of Texas, United States Southern District of Texas judge. And here's the messages from the House, measures referred, enrolled bills present, executive communications. You can see the pages there, additional co-sponsors, additional statement. Then you come down here, you go into committees, post-nuclear treaty, business meeting, counterterrorism, committee on foreign relations, and subcommittee of Near East, Far Southeast, Central Asia. Yeah, modernized NIH, Committee on Health, the Nazi Swiss banks, Committee on Judiciary Committee, Netflix Warner Brothers transaction. Very important. Committee on the Judiciary Subcommittee on Antitrust Competition Policy and Consumer Rights concluded a hearing to examine the comprehensive competitive impact of the proposed Netflix Warner Brothers transaction after receiving testimony from Ted Sadaro's Netflix, Los Gatos, California, and Bruce Campbell, Warner Brothers Discovery, New York, New York. Yeah, that's a conglomeration which can affect our streaming and other things. And then we go to the House Chamber Actions, has this, and this is just a quick digest over it. And then we go into the committees, the Agriculture Committee, what they did in there. You can actually view the videos if you want. Building artificial intelligence. We need to stay on this because we need them to put stuff in place to monitor and control AI. Oversight Federal Energy Regulations Commission, advancing affordable and reliable energy for all Americas. We need to push for renewable energies and try to push out the coal and other energies, the natural resource wasted energies. They work, yes, but it would be better if we went to wind and solar power because they do work. They don't cost more than what it would to do a generation of a normal plant, a coal plant or something. Nuclear, that is an option, but we need to look at the nuclear law rules and verify that they are regulated and that they are monitored and do maintain safety protocols. And we do not have a Chernobyl or another 3 Mile Island from a scram. And I don't have the true definition of scram right now. I'll have to look that up and I'll get back to you. Anybody that does know it can put it in the comments. But basically, the plant was in a runaway situation. They couldn't control it and it caused a leak. In Chernobyl, it caused a boom. Get what happened in 3 Mile Island. I'll look those up. I'll go further and get those into details because I do need to see what that is. Now we go into U.S. policy towards Lebanon, obstacles to dismantle Hezbollah, grip on power. Yeah, we do need to get rid of that. Legislative matters, there's the different things, fraud and VA Disability Exam Act. That's one I missed. Reimbursement Act, Veteran Burial Allowance, Presume Act, Fraud and Disability Claims, Susan E. Lucas, 9/11, Service Member Fairness Act. That's post 9/11 payout of the post 9/11 education fund. And I think that was in yesterday's joint meeting, or maybe in the one that happened today. Yeah, you can look. Joint meeting, securing Syria's transformation, Commission on Security Corporation in Europe. Commission included the committee meetings for Wednesday, February 4th. Committee on Commerce, Science, Transportation, to hold hearings to examine future self-driving cars, 10 a.m. SR 2253, Committee on Energy and National Resources Business meeting to consider S90. And here's the rest of the thing. Here's the House layout of what they're going to do tomorrow, or actually it would be today, because this was for the 3rd, for the 4th. So you can get these off the website. Let me see if I have that. Okay, I have. You can get this. I got rid of the page. But when you do a search on the House and all that, it will come up and pull up your congressional and your minutes and all that, and what happened on which floor, and then you can select which one you want to pull up. And that's what these are. That's the congressional record of the Senate, congressional record of the House, and then there's the daily digest. There's how I pulled up Congress, the hearing, one of the hearings. Yeah, you can do that with the floors. This is actually what's happening today. So the floor, the House floor is on YouTube, and you can go back in time in YouTube and find the videos. The Senate, you can go through C-SPAN and get those videos to some degree. Also, PBS does it. C-SPAN doesn't do any extra talking. They're not partisan talking anyway. So there is that. Hopefully this helps you. Thank you for your time. Like, share, follow. Please remember you are loved no matter what you do. Register to vote and verify you're registered to vote and know your law for voting. Thank you and goodbye.